I want to recap on what's happened over the last year. I sit on sub 2, and we did the early action fire money. And we wanted to get that money out so we could actually do projects in our communities to help fend off, which we knew was coming, the fire. And to date, we've burned about 1 million acres just in my district alone. So before the break, the fires were started, before we had our recess, and we passed more legislation in the budget bill, and we talked about this bill, the trailer bill, cleanup legislation for fire. So over the break, I actually did some research in between watching my communities burn down. And I found that there was $460 million worth of projects, and I have the list right here in my hand. And it's not projects just in my district, it's projects all over California that are in every one of your districts. I may have trees, you may have chaparral, but our communities will burn if we do not do something with vegetation management. These are, mind you, shovel-ready projects. So I submitted these lists to the budget chairs. I submitted them to the sub 2 members. I submitted them to the people who make this place work. And I'm on apparently the wrong side of the aisle to get things done, because even though I submitted all these projects and the ability to get the money on the ground and get it done has not happened. So we have a process that's set out that we are in a budget hearing today, and we're going to listen to the public, and we're going to take their testimony, which I believe doesn't mean anything, because if a legislator can't get the opportunity to talk about and a way to amend bills so that we actually do something on the ground, I don't know how the public can ever influence this place. So today, I want to just share some thoughts about what we need to do. And I want to share where we've failed our state with policy. Number one, when we talk about treating 500,000 acres, the CAL FIRE folks count acres as treated that are timber harvest plans, which private companies do on their own land. We asked them that in sub 2, and they said that's true. That's properties that didn't cost this state a dime. Actually, we made money off of them. And that's about 300,000 acres. As I've watched when we really talk about treating acres and what monies we're spending on it, they're counting acres that they don't even spend a dime on as their treated acres. So if you narrow it down and look at the amount of money we're spending on acres, it's a lot higher cost. So I'm attempting to try to get projects done, fire-safe projects done around communities throughout the state so we don't burn our communities down. Now, we all know that the 8th wonder of the world was almost on fire, which I call Tahoe. I represent all of Lake Tahoe. And when the fire came over the ridge and into the valley, there was a fire break there. We have been doing some fire breaks around the lake in the last 15 years since the Angora fire. We were able to backfire at the fire break and actually turn the fire and save Lake Tahoe. Can you imagine what Greenville would have looked like if we'd had a fire safe around that community? We would still have a community there. So I have amendments, Madam Chair, that I want to propose. I don't know how this process works. I've never done this before, but I have amendments that I want the budget to reflect that if there's a project that is available, what that means that CEQA, NEPA approved projects, that we fund them not through CAL FIRE, who is busy fighting fire. Or if it is through CAL FIRE, then they have to get the funds out by the projects that are NEPA and CEQA, shovel-ready projects, that we fund them. They be funded by January 1 of next year, so that the people that are planning these projects and actually get the people on the ground to get them done, so that next year, we're not starting in January. We're starting now. We have the money, and this budget does not direct the policy to get those done. So I've submitted amendments to every one of your desks that we should put into language that allows us to get these projects done. I just don't know where else to go. I've talked on this floor about fire since the time I came to this legislature and tried to educate it that there's only one way, one thing that we can actually do to stop fire, and that's take the fuel away, at least around our communities. As I've watched millions of acres and habitat and wildlife and watersheds and carbon spew out of California, and we don't do good policy. So I'm just begging to do the right thing. So I don't have to go back to my communities and the other senators that represent these communities and say, you know what, we didn't get it done. And the governor said we did 90,000 acres, and we really only did 9. CAL FIRE is saying we do all these acres, and they didn't really do it. The private people did it because they're THPs. Let's do some acres. Let's treat them. We have the resources, we have the money, we have the people to do it, and they're already shovel-ready projects. So, Madam Chair, I don't know what the process is, but I have these amendments, and I would request that we vote on these amendments.
It is not really appropriate to take amendments at this point because the waivers we approved were for specific bills in specific time period, and we are past that time period. One moment. I appreciate that you are frustrated, and not that it diminishes it, but you have brought up the issues and the frustration about the funding in past. But what I wanted to clarify is that in this action that we are, assuming that we approve it tonight, there is $50 million that is going directly to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. Additionally, there is $120 million for fire prevention grants. You're correct that it does not go, it is not already specified for which fire council or fire safety council. However, they are eligible to apply, and if they have shovel-ready projects, they will be more likely to receive that money immediately. And as you pointed out, there was a fire break, thank goodness, around Tahoe. Yes, it would be obviously greatly improved to have fire breaks around all of our areas that are in threat of wildfire. However, I think it would have been hard for all of us to anticipate that basically almost everywhere in the state is at threat of wildfire now.
So, if I may, Madam
Yes, go
Chair.
ahead, Senator Dahle.
So what you're telling me is that over Labor Day weekend, these bills were amended on Monday, Labor Day, that there's no opportunity to amend these bills in a budget committee. This is a committee. This isn't. So why is the public then going to call in and comment on any of these bills because they have no influence over the ability to be able to affect the legislation? So I would share with everybody that's watching, you don't need to call in because there's nothing you can do. If a senator can't amend or have the opportunity to amend, then nobody does.
Senator Dahle, we will entertain the motion, and I'm not trying to be rude here, but I would like to just point out that the bills before us last week to not only schedule this hearing, but to also allow us to amend bills were opposed by your colleagues on the floor. However, we will allow you to make the motion on the amendments that you've distributed. So, do you want to make that motion?
Yes, I would be happy to make that motion.
Okay.
Do I need to read my amendments?
No, you don't need to read them. They are in writing here. Everyone has them. Senator Dahle is making a motion on those amendments you have before you, and he is clearly asking for an aye vote.
So,
go ahead, Senator.
if I may, the public has no idea what you're voting on because it's just in front of the members. I think the public has an opportunity to know, should have the opportunity to know what we're either up or down.
Can you summarize? Can you briefly summarize those?
I surely can. Thank you.
Certainly.
My amendments would allow for the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection to establish and administer grants to conservancies, fire safe councils, and county governments that have shovel-ready projects, what I stated earlier. That means fire safe councils, RCDs, and it also has, in the second part of the amendment, it has the legislation to take $500 million from the general funds monies for the wildfire prevention resilience activities. So basically what I'm asking to do is and it has to be done by the end of the year for projects starting next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so Senator Dahle is asking for an aye vote on those amendments. I would only, as I previously pointed out, that his amendment is asking for a different agency to administer a larger portion of funds than is in what was before us, but we do have CAL FIRE in this bill that we have before us with the ability to fund those shovel-ready projects with the two exactly the same entities that Senator Dahle pointed out. So I will be voting no on those amendments. And we can have a roll call. So the vote is ayes 5, noes 11. So we will continue with those amendments are not approved.